story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlin Clark.
What happens when the lights go out and the losses mount? A smile captured on camera is one thing. The fairy story is beginning to fall apart, according to Caitlin Clark, the face of a revolution in women's basketball, exposing a far more stark and terrible reality. The world witnesses the $28 million Nike deal, the record-breaking rookie. Despite the seemingly effortless charisma and sold-out arenas, a tempest is building behind the scenes. A rage that has been building for weeks and has now unquestionably reached a boiling point. Following the heartbreaking, the modest murmurs of her annoyance turned into a thunderous shout during the close defeat to the Dallas Wings. And now, Stephen A. Smith, one of the most potent and significant voices in sports media, has just come forward. Caitlin Clark is enraged, confirming what many have long believed. The situation developing within no one has been willing to acknowledge how intense, intimate, and potentially explosive the WNBA is. Openly. The game against the Dallas Wings ended in a thrilling 87-84 score. On paper, it was just another close loss, although the struggling Indiana Fever had already experienced plenty of them this season. This defeat felt very different. Caitlin Clark performed all of her duties and more during the game. She wasn't just a scorer. She was a court general with a career-high 13 assists, a skilled facilitator who threads passes through insurmountable windows, and fervently attempting to inspire her side to a crucial triumph. She played with the vision, the ardor and fierce competitiveness that turned her becoming a worldwide star at Iowa. However, when that final, the cameras were always focused on her, and when the terrible buzzer sounded, the outcome was sadly familiar. Defeat. Saw hints of the reality she was trying to conceal. A tight jaw, a long-distance gaze, a level of annoyance that was too great to be covered up by post-game platitudes or professional decency. This was the unadulterated rage of a born winner rather than the straightforward disappointment of a typical defeat. A generational talent, having to come to terms with mediocrity. This was the final tipping point. The instant the meticulously crafted public persona of the happy rookie started to fall apart, exposing the ferocious fire of a rival who was being driven to the brink of her endurance. However, the entire tale wasn't merely written on Clark's weary and enraged face. It was going to be aired to millions by a man who never, ever holds back. His affirmation would completely alter the story. And that's where Stephen A. Smith enters the scene, turning rumors in the locker room into a national story. He didn't merely provide a standard game analysis or a few flimsy talking points on his enormous platform. He provided a shocking revelation that validated the core of the problem, giving him enormous credibility. To the circulating rumors. Stephen A. made the globe aware of the annoyance people were experiencing. Wasn't merely conjecture or drama created by the media, it was genuine, profound, and deeply ingrained. Instead of portraying Caitlin Clark as a struggling rookie acclimating to the major leagues, he constructed a vivid picture of but as a murderer, a real alpha competitor whose spirit was being systematically smashed by the dysfunctional circumstances surrounding her. With his characteristic fervor, he clarified that Clark's rage was caused by a poisonous mix of unavoidable elements. First and foremost, the team's frustrating incapacity. Despite her best individual efforts, she managed to win close games. A player of her caliber, someone who rewrote the record literature in college, is essentially programmed to rule, and being a member of a losing team is a unique type of HLL that consumes away at a champion's soul. Secondly, and more importantly, Stephen A. pointed out the obvious and frequently unpunished targeting she encounters each time she takes the court. He wasn't merely discussing difficult, he was referring to a regular sequence of physical aggression, cheap shots, and violent defense. Off-ball hip checks and somewhat dubious plays that appear to be intended to accomplish more than simply halt a play. They are intended to threaten, harm, and convey a message. He basically affirmed that Clark is enraged because she feels utterly defenseless and unassisted, not just by the officials who appear to swallow their whistles moment she is struck, but also by a league that appears oddly satisfied to allow its greatest star, its golden goose, take an unrelenting battering. His stirring remarks immediately changed the story, from a novice acclimating to the pros to a celebrity waging a solitary battle on several fronts. His public affirmation gave the show a powerful voice, mute fury that was obviously growing within of her. However, this conflict wasn't limited to the Indiana Fever or a single horrible night in Dallas. Stephen A. was only drawing attention to a much more sinister, unacknowledged war that has been simmering across the Women's National Basketball Association ever when her name was called on selection night. Caitlin Clark's harsh, nearly hostile reception in the WNBA is well known to anyone who has been paying notice. The Chicago Sky's Chenety Carter called her a BCH before leveling her vicious blindside hip check, which was far from the ball, was the most obvious and heinous instance of a league-wide phenomena. Players from all teams appear to be lining up to try to win the Golden Goose, to give their welcome to the league moment. However, the crucial query that Stephen A. Smith's analysis compels us to all why is the question to ask? Is this the typical hazing of rookies for a highly anticipated number 1 draft pick, a rite of passage that all great players go through? Must persevere? Or is it something far darker and more intimate? The facts on the court and the rumors in the sports world strongly recommend the latter. Many people think there is a strong sense of anger and deep-seated jealousy toward Clark that is prevalent throughout the league. She entered the WNBA with a $100 million Nike contract prior to playing just one professional game. She travels to games in Gainbridge-sponsored private aircraft and has a degree of international media attention that even the most renowned seasoned superstars in the game could only have imagined. Some veterans believe that Clark hasn't fulfilled her obligations and that she has been overhyped by the media creation who has been working relentlessly to save a league and is receiving unfair credit for it with their own blood, sweat, and tears for years. As a result, the persistent aggressiveness, the off-ball shoves, the hard fouls, and the aggressive stance are deliberate statements rather than merely playing hard defense. They signify a concerted, albeit silent, attempt to physically and psychologically destroy her in order to demonstrate that she doesn't belong on the pedestal that the world has so swiftly put her on. There is a covert plot to dehumanize the novice. He abruptly transformed their entire universe and made every encounter a possible battlefield, where punishing the celebrity is the goal rather than merely winning the game. This relentless external attack is one thing, but Caitlin Clark's real, underlying source of rage may be far closer to home. From within her own locker room. Although Clark must contend with a league that appears intent on taking her down, the Indiana Fever are not a title contender, and she returns to a locker room that is a seething pressure cooker in and of itself. Team, and everyone is aware of it. They are a young, rebuilding team that spent a lengthy time at the bottom of the standings. Prior to her arrival. All of a sudden, this team's aspirations to be relevant, as well as a large section of the league's a 2 to 2-year-old, was put squarely, and possibly unfairly, in charge of their financial destiny. Newbie. No matter how skilled an athlete is, they cannot possibly bear such a responsibility. This is the point at which her obvious annoyance becomes multifaceted and extremely complicated. It's not just about the final score, it's about how they are losing. A series of close games, recurring defensive plays in the fourth quarter breakdowns, and a persistent feeling that success is only a few deft plays away can be particularly annoying for a player like Clark, who is accustomed to winning championships with everyone in her vicinity. Norm. As a result, rumors concerning the team's internal dynamics have started to circulate. Do her colleagues genuinely back her wholeheartedly, or do some of them also possess a silent fortitude? Discontent with the media circus that tracks her every step and uses them as supporting characters in their own narrative. The complicated situation involves Aaliyah Boston, the Rookie of the Year from the previous season, who is currently the backup. Is Christy Sides, the head coach of her own club, doing enough to create an attacking scheme that safeguards Clark, protects her from physical harm, and makes the most of her unique talent? These are the awkward inquiries being questioned in private, because when a generational genius appears that persistently irate on the court, it's frequently a clear indication of underlying fissures in the foundation rather than merely about the opponent. Of her own group, a deep sense of loneliness and structural failure that may be much more harmful and discouraging. The physical toll of this violent greeting to the WNBA is evident, surpassing any cheap shot from an opponent. For everyone to witness. The bruising, the forceful falls to the ground, the ongoing struggle through unlawful screens, and the tugging of jerseys. Her body is being attacked non-stop, night after night. However, the psychological and emotional cost of this experience is arguably even more significant, and this is the core issue that Stephen A. Smith was highlighting. For a brief moment, imagine being praised as the only person who can save a professional sports league. Each and every game your team plays is shown on national television, setting a new benchmark for the WNBA. All of your box scores is examined and discussed on talk shows. Every small indication of frustration on the court is recorded, replayed in slow motion, and scrutinized by a plethora of social media critics and analysts. She bears the heavy burden of TV ratings, ticket sales, and the league's future significance resting on her youthful shoulders. That kind of oppressive strain is unthinkable. She can't have a single poor shooting night without it making headlines across the country. That she's a bust. She can't express human emotion without being called a diva or a bad athlete. Now add to that oppressive strain the persistent, nagging sensation that you are being physically attacked by your own peers, who stand to gain directly from the Caitlin Clark effect due to larger audiences and more lucrative TV deals. It's a surefire prescription for long-standing animosity and psychological exhaustion. The league appears to have failed in its most ambitious attempt to profit from her extraordinary renown. Fundamental obligation to safeguard its most precious and revolutionary resource. The tangible rage at Stephen A. Smith affirmed that it is more than just losing a single basketball game against the Dallas Wings. It is a young person's instinctive cry. When a woman is pushed to the brink, she fights for her status, respect, and even her physical health. In a league that appears to be in dire need of her while also harboring strong animosity toward her. The utter inequity of it all is a significant burden that is being driven by one of the most potent and ancient motivators in human history. Cold, hard cash. Since money is the unsaid accelerant in this situation, let's be brutally honest and straightforward about it. That has been thrown over this blazing fire. Caitlin Clark's official WNBA salary is slightly more than $76,000. To put that in perspective, it's less than what many people make in a typical office job during her rookie year. In the meantime, she has a $28 million signature shoe contract with Nike and a portfolio of enormous multi-year endorsements from multinational corporations like Panini, State Farm, and Gatorade. This enormous, the nearly ridiculous difference between her league pay and her commercial profits results in an odd and unquestionably poisonous environment in the league's locker rooms. Her rivals, many of whom are distinguished veterans, see a player who is a living, talking corporation earning nothing more than her official WNBA salary. They observe her private travels,